How old were you when you first kind of became recognised on the streets of Leicester?
Probably early 20s.
Right. So since then...
I was a kind of slightly late developer for a footballer.
Were you?
Yeah, I wasn't, I didn't really get into the first team regularly until I was about 21, 22, and then it kind of spiralled from there. But
so you've been recognisable since...
far too much so.
And now, presumably, you I mean, you can't go anywhere in Britain without somebody having a word or saying something. Usually nice.
Always nice.
Yes.
Bizarrely, despite in other areas.
We'll get on to that.
Yeah, exactly. But no, people are generally very, very pleasant, and I get noticed everywhere I go, particularly outside of London, probably more than London, because people are busy in London. There's a massive amount of ethnicities, etc. But if I go outside of, it's a bit.
Do you enjoy it?
It can be a bit. It's fine. I don't mind. It's fine. I'm used to it. It's so normal because it's been like that for over 30 years.
Yeah, of course.
So I would probably notice it more if it were the other way round.
Yes.
But I can, if I want to escape, I can go abroad. And
was it always football? I mean, was that because you mentioned being in your 20s? These days, you'd be earmarked at 12 or 13. Were you on the books at Leicester as a schoolboy? Were you?
Yeah, I was about that age, 12, 13. So I was on the schoolboy force. I didn't really think I'd actually make it.
Did you not? You didn't have burning ambition?
No, I had burning ambition.
Okay.
Massive amount of ambition. Always had that, and drive and commitment and speed and stuff like that. But I didn't. Inside me, really, it's unbelievably competitive trying to be a footballer. It's difficult. And I wasn't picked for the county side. I was tiny. I didn't grow until I was like 16, 17. So that was all. So I was very slight. I weighed about 9 stone. And size was important in football in those days. It still is in this country to a lesser degree, but still there. So it was everything I did in the game kind of surprised me. Whether it was when I got in the reserves, I thought, oh, this will find me out. And then I got in the first team and I was sitting around all my favourite players and I was thinking, what am I doing here?
Really?
Yeah, genuinely. And then, but whatever level I
kept pushing through.
Kept scoring. So,
get in.
Thankfully, yeah.
Of course. It's really weird that you say that because Ian Lee was in a couple of weeks ago because he's an old mate of mine and he just got out of the jungle and he talked about that in a slightly different way, but that sense of always being about to be found out or something, as if you're going to get the tap on the shoulder and say, "All right, son, you've had your fun, off your job." But a raw sporting talent is very different from the world you're in now, from the kind of world of broadcasting and
and again, I mean, I remember the first couple of years after I finished football, and I knew what I wanted to do, and again, I had that ambition to try and do it well, but. For a couple of years, there were so many. I remember I did Football Focus from about 96, and so many times I was in the car driving home thinking, I'm never going to crack this. But then over a period of time, you get comfortable with the environment and how it works and listening to talk back and doing interviews.
But there's no equivalent of scoring goals, or is there? Do you ever get a moment where you want to do a quick tear around the studio and give everyone a hug?
Funnily enough, that's the one thing I've found you can't replace.
No.
There's nothing that compares to the feeling of scoring an important goal or winning a massive game, although it was never quite as good if you didn't score. But there's never been anything quite like that. Doing TV replaces perhaps a little bit of the adrenaline rush. We still have the kind of team camaraderie, even though it's a smaller team. So there's that.
Sure. But the banter and the interplay.
And the banter and a bit of fun and all that kind of thing. But that moment, that scoring a big goal in a World Cup game or something, there's nothing. And I've had conversations with like Michael Owen and Alan Shearer about this, and they say the same thing. Michael's tried to get it in racing; it doesn't quite exist. But so the only thing that's come anywhere near close was Leicester winning the league a couple of years ago. That was probably the most joyous experience because 3 of my lads support Leicester.
Right.
I mean, they're all grown up now.
Sure, but still.
But to live that through that experience with them, the last kind of couple of months of the season where they kept playing on Sunday. So I did my Saturday night job, got home. The boys always used to come round, cook a bit of lunch, watch Leicester, and they kept winning 1-0.
It's unbelievable.
1-0. And it was just, and then I remember just the four of us, George, one of them, he supports Man United, but even he joined in the end. And we're all like hugging away in the lounge. It was incredible.
And that gives other people a flavour. That sense of disbelief and magic at the same time
it was a miracle.
Yeah, it just was,
really
wasn't it?
was,
As was pretty quickly proved at the beginning of the next season.
Of course.
It was about the planets aligning and stuff like that.
So.
That I mean, to stay with football for a bit, that kind of gave the lie to a lot of the negativity surrounding the modern game, didn't it? The fact that everything was up for sale and the fact that everything was over-produced and over-thought and over-managed. It was really like lightning striking, but because it was a league title rather than a cup, anyone can win a cup if the wind is blowing in the right direction. But to do it week after week after week, I know that it hasn't been sustained properly, but it did.
Well, it was never going to.
No,
be.
of course.
What happened the following season was inevitable in my mind.
Do you think so?
Oh, it was like after the Lord Mayor's show, that didn't quite matter so much for the players. The manager tried something different, that didn't work. They blame the manager. He leaves, somebody else comes in. All of a sudden, the microscope's back on the players, so they performed a bit better. But no, what they did was just astonishing. It was just wonderful. And yes, it did go against everything, perhaps in said the things that only the big clubs could win, etc., and the power. But although it's always really been like that, there's always been two dominant clubs or three. At least now we've got a few, even though perhaps the top six are massively separated.
At least it's six.
Some leagues it's one, some leagues it's two, but we've got a few.
You mentioned Shearer and Owen, both of whom, like you, have quite, and I mean this in a nice way, a sensible demeanour. You mentioned the magic and never quite being able to recapture it. The other players, the ones who are less sensible, I suppose most obviously Gascoigne, they do sometimes seem to spend their lives searching for the high again, don't they? There's a tragedy to that.
Well, I think it's difficult for a lot of former footballers. Obviously, they get a lot of plaudits when they play. They get a lot of glory. They're in the public kind of demeanour and everything. They get lots of money relevant to a lot of other people, and nowadays more so.
Yes.
But it's not easy at the end of your career. Some of us have found something else that we can do into television, but there's only so many spots for pundits or, well, there's not many presenters, and there's only so many coaching jobs. So the vast majority of footballers are kind of getting a bit of a wilderness.
Yes.
Where they don't know what to do, and they'll perhaps invest in some business that might go wrong. Or I think the divorce rates for footballers from the age of something like 35 to 40 is something stupid, like 70%.
Unbelievable.
So then, then the money disappears a little bit. Their self-worth can go down. So it's, people talk about Paul Gascoigne, but and he was a magical footballer.
That's why.
But he's got kind of.
He went higher and lower.
Gazza always had kind of issues and a very addictive personality. But even for lots of other players, he wasn't. And you also get accustomed to living in a certain way and spending a certain amount of money, because most people, the more you earn, the more you spend generally, and then it plummets. So I'm aware I've been hugely fortunate to find something else that I could do that pays really well and gives me a life that I enjoy. And I often think to myself, why have I been so lucky? Genuinely.
Yes. So it's serendipity, luck, and that notion of being on an even keel as well, which is nice. You mentioned the money. How different is it now compared to when you were in your pomp?
Well, I was one of the top players in the world probably for half a dozen years.
Yeah.
And that would have meant about the salary perhaps someone like Alexis Sanchez would now get in a week. Not that I'm complaining, because I do fine, but yes, so I've been on some just over 300 grand a year, and I think that's probably about what Sanchez and one or two others in world football
can factor in inflation and real term comparisons, but you're talking about a completely different world.
Shifted massively,
and then compare you to the previous generation to you, and
whatever generation they're in.
Yes.
I can't wait to hear the current crop whinging in about 10, 15 years.
I can't believe he's earning £1 carrillion, that bloke.
I don't begrudge him in the slightest.
Some players do, don't they? You can see a few.
Well, there's also that players get attacked for how much they earn.
Yes.
Here. But nobody ever seems to say anything about, yes, I can never, I'm not going to try and sit here and justify a footballer's salary or a broadcaster's salary. but compared with people that do a real job.
Yes, of course.
But it is what it is. But nobody ever complains about kind of golfers or huge basketball stars or Formula One drivers or big actors that get zillions for a movie, top musicians. If you're in the top of the entertainment industry, you get really well paid. But it only seems to, it's not only footballers, but by and large footballers, if they get walloped for earning a few quid. And then you've got the other side of it, the big business people.
Yes.
They earn fortunes.
Yeah, of course.
Way beyond anything that possibly a footballer can manage if they're successful enough. So, it's impossible to sit here and ever try and justify a big salary.
No, of course.
But I wouldn't even try. I've just been lucky to be in the right business.
It's not a very long list of people in any line of work who've ever turned around and said, I think you might be paying me a bit too much, so why don't you have some of it back? See if you can find someone else who's more deserving than I am. And that, of course, sort of speaks to the security that you have as well. And I wonder how big a part the security plays in you making the decision in recent years to sort of move out of your lane, as the Americans say.
Yeah.
When non-political people get involved in politics, they're often told to stay in their lane. You've pretty much gone through the crash barrier in some context.
What a fool.
Well, do you think? No, I mean, obviously you don't, or you wouldn't be here today. No.
Yeah.
But how? I mean, I think for some people, the fear of upsetting the Daily Mail or the Sun or seeing your employer, in the case of the BBC, put under pressure to get rid of you. If you didn't know that you could pay all of your bills until, I know you've got children and stuff, but does that play a part at all, or is that overthinking what is quite an instinctive thing for you?
I never worried about my job.
No.
I think I've always said reasonable things. I don't, and I didn't do them on my programs. I do them on my personal social media, whether it's, Twitter by and large.
Yes.
So, and it started kind of when I did a little bit about FIFA. I was quite strong on Blatter in particular, which is not quite political issues. But
Was that when you first started offering up opinion about something other than what's happened on a pitch?
Quite probably, just about, apart from other sporting things,
sure.
And one or two interests. But I think I have a kind of social conscience. So I supported, I felt sorry for the refugees, and that seemed to be some kind of crime that you. It's
astonishing when you put it like that.
I don't quite get it, because imagine if it was London.
Yeah.
And we were under attack or something. We had to flee, and you had to try and get a boat across the channel, and members of your family would die en route. And to go to the extremes to escape some kind of awful regime that you're in.
Yes.
I just don't understand. I mean, it's a difficult to deal with, and how many come in and who doesn't, and whether we should house refugees, etc., look after them. And there's always issues about that, but I do not understand how you can not have a degree of sympathy for their incredibly awful plight. And that was all I really did at the start, and then that didn't go down too well. It was
going back to about October 2016,
it must be a couple
roughly
of years ago, yeah.
Because it's remarkable to think that it's that recent, now that you are kind of one of the people on the totem pole for the right-wing press that they like to dance around on a regular basis. But it didn't put you off, that astonishing overreaction.
No, I'm not really bullyable, which is probably a weakness in a way, or a strength. I don't know.
But that would be true in football as well.
It's more likely, the more they have a go at me, it's more likely for me to be more involved.
But when it started, because I've never met you before, I'm really interested in this. When it started, because I do it for a living.
Yeah.
So when it started, you were just being an ordinary bloke offering an ordinary opinion about extraordinary circumstances, with no inkling at all that you were painting a target on your back.
No, I didn't think I was painting any kind of target. No. I did one or two tweets around the same stage. I couldn't really grasp how hateful some sides were. And then they started perhaps having a go at me, and I was on the front pages about how you can have these kind of views, etc. What I couldn't really comprehend, I mean, I've got people that have alternative views, whether it's something like, whether it's refugees, whether it's immigrants, whether it's Brexit, etc., etc. But they'll have those views, and we'll even discuss them and debate them. But we don't start abusing each other. It's the levels of abuse that came, and probably not helped by our newspapers, because kind of fostering this kind of hatred towards individuals. So it went from there. But what I can't really understand is, you can have different opinions. Loads of people have got different opinions on things. You think Brexit's a great thing. All right, well, let's discuss it.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean to say I'm not going to like that person.
No, but isn't
any less. I might
Sure.
not like his views very much, but it doesn't mean to say I'm not going to dislike that person.
I would have thought football would prepare you for this better than almost anything else in the world.
Quite probably, because we'd get dogs abuse from the day we start playing.
Genuinely despised. In the blink of an eye, if you sign a contract with a new club and leave the old club, you go from being on people's bedroom walls to being turned into an effigy and burnt on bonfire night.
Yeah. So it's good training.
It's
really good training.
It's good training for a monstrum from the son or the male.
It did.
Well, it is actually, because you see, for non...
The thing about football is, for a lot of people, it's the most important thing in their life.
Yes.
For a lot of people, it genuinely is.
You either get that 100% or you don't get it at all, do you?
Yeah.
It's hard to explain it to somebody who goes to the occasional game or someone who enjoys watching it on the telly.
Yeah,
I always think the corners on the telly, when the camera comes in on a corner and a player who is at the wrong end, the expressions on these people's faces are feral. Yeah. They're wild.
You see them. I've seen them looking at me like that.
So that gives you thick skin, turns you into a bit of a rhinoceros.
It can do, or if you can't cope with it as a footballer, it can kind of have a real weakening effect on your career, a debilitating effect. So
there was that lad
you've got to be able to deal with that.
Yes. So I'm a Kidderminster Harriers fan, so I don't really spend that much time with people for whom football is the single most important thing in their life. And in many ways,
as well.
Isn't it just? But in many ways, it's healthier, because you're never going to come out of Agborough worried that someone's going to smash a bottle over your head or take a swing at you. And the same obviously goes for the players. Well, do you remember when you were first exposed to the ugliness of it?
Well, in my time, it was much uglier than
now.
Of course. You've got to remember, we had hooliganism.
Yeah.
The racism from the terraces was diabolical. I mean, I remember being playing on the pitch and bananas being thrown on in games when there were back players playing. I remember being on the plane with England. We used to go on a plane, but there was punters on the back.
Yeah.
And I remember a few punters coming down, having a go at John Barnes, saying, you shouldn't be allowed to wear an England shirt. Yeah, it's serious. I mean, thankfully, it's come a long way since then. And I think in many ways, I know there is still issues and there's still racism around and still racism in football around. But in terms of, I think football's kind of a guiding light in many ways. In the football community, you're part of a team. You sit in a dressing room. You don't look round at your teammates and think, oh, he's black, he's yellow, he's this.
Any more than you do in your office or your workplace or your factory.
There's none of that. You look around, you're going, well, he's a good player. He can cross it. He can defend. He works his...
Yeah.
So it's like that. And it's
Humanising.
come on and come on and come on. And even on, you don't get... I don't hear or see the chants in this country.
Still
anything like it was in the mid 80s, late 80s, when it was abhorrent.
It was interesting, wasn't it, to read about Cyril Regis after he passed away recently, because he was really pretty much the first focus of this kind of feeling.
And he was a trailblazer, and he handled it all with such dignity. And I think that's important as well. When people have a go at you, if you can kind of almost get the moral high ground in a way by not losing it. And he was very even-tempered and articulate, and along with his teammates at that time at West Brom.
I love this idea. I love the idea of because what you're describing really is managing to retain your faith in human nature despite all the evidence you personally get of how vile it can be. Yeah. I never would have thought of football as being a great leveler, a great teacher of how things can improve and how things can change.
I know it's an interesting angle, I suppose, but because we've been through it so much,
of course.
But I think we've come a long way in football. I mean, we see it in other countries. There's much more racism problems. It's almost like it was here 30 years ago. But I think we've improved a lot. There's still a way to go, and there's still isolated incidents that we'll get within our game. But by and large, it's improved both on the pitch and off the pitch. Obviously, we've got to get more because we've got such a kind of cross section of people from different countries, etc. here, and different colours. We've not quite got that into the management side of the game yet.
No,
certainly in the playing side, it's great.
And equally, if you were to exchange black skin for the Muslim faith, you've still got a massive disconnect between the fans. I'm an anorak like this, so I actually, the last, was it, I could get Arsenal-Chelsea, the last FA Cup final. What was it?
It was.
Yeah, so I went on Wikipedia to work out how many of the players were Muslims, and I put together an 11. If you included the subs and a couple of people who were injured, there was 11 people associated with both clubs who were both Muslims, and yet still we live in a country where that kind of notion of integration is completely ignored. Football is actually, in many ways, it shows the way forward, doesn't it?
It's paving the way.
Paving
Who would have thought ever
thought football all these years
would pave
later?
the way for good and for people to get on? Because what we really are, we're all human beings, and that's why I don't.
It's absurd.
Yeah,
absolutely, out on his ears. That was the headline, wasn't it? Lineker peddles human lies.
Anything for an ear joke.
You mentioned abroad and foreign countries. You famously were at Barcelona. It's less common now for English players to go and play.
I think there's a reason for that.
Go on.
I think English players are generally reluctant to move. We're all quite happy. We live on a little island here, don't we? And we're all quite homely. And it was the same in my day. But in my day, it paid so much better anywhere else. It was, you triple, quadruple your salary by playing either in Spain for one of the big boys or Italy.
Yes.
So there were quite a few players in those days would go. There were a few, it was like Ray Wilkins, I remember Mark Haitley, Liam Brady, Kevin Keegan went to Germany, Tony Woodcock. There were, a few went to Spain. So, it was also for me, it was a wonderful experience to go to a place like Barcelona, and who turns that down? But and a chance to learn another language and things like that. But by and large, there were quite a few players that just went, well, a few quid, couple of years, get back home.
Yes.
Whereas now they don't have to go anywhere if they don't want to. I'd like to see one or two of them play.
Here.
Well, the salaries here are so high. They're as high as they are. Well, with the exceptions of Messi and
Ronaldo,
ridiculous, but he deserves it. And Ronaldo and people like that. The salaries here are very competitive. So therefore, we're getting an influx of top players, not just staying here, but also an influx coming in.
So there's an inkling there, wasn't there, which none of us would have noticed at the time, of the Lineker, the social justice warrior, who was 2 decades further down the tracks. Because when you went to Barcelona, you tried to really embrace Spanish culture. There was none of that kind of living in a footballer's ghetto. You learnt the language. You put down roots in the country, or tried to. Yeah,
there were no football in ghettos in those days, like big walls, houses, and stuff like that. But yeah, I deliberately avoided the expat society because I just thought this is a unique opportunity to learn a language.
Where did that come from, Gary? Because I've got this image of you on your dad's market stall in Leicester, while on the books at Leicester as a schoolboy. I don't know enough about you to say with any certainty, but presumably, if you're on the books of a club, you're not going to hit the real books at school quite as hard as you would otherwise.
I was all right at school. I didn't probably. No, you're right though. I didn't. Looking back now, if I was advising the young me,
yes,
I'd have said you've got a degree in intelligence, you've got to work harder. I mean, I passed 11 plus, I got to grammar school, did all that, but then football and cricket took over, and sport was...
How good were you at cricket?
I thought I'd had more chance at cricket than football.
Did you make the county side? Did you make the county side at cricket?
I was 16 and my football opportunity came along.
Right.
I played the county schools at cricket. I captained Leicestershire schools for
quite
a few years. But,
there you go.
So, yeah, I thought I had a chance at that more than football, but the football's opportunity came along first, and then cricket took a back seat.
So your brain was big and active, but didn't have a lot to chew on. Is that fair?
Well, I used to enjoy writing. I always enjoyed writing. I used to write match reports when I go and watch Leicester. No one knows that really. But and so I always enjoyed.
It's inside this international football stuff. It's a journalist screaming to get out all along.
People you say that was what I wanted to do if I didn't make it.
Right.
I wanted to. I would have been a sports journalist.
Yes.
Which I suspect is the reason most sports journalists end up being sports journalists, because
you're probably right.
They can't do it. Bless them.
You're probably right. Yeah. So there was that engagement with the world around you, the desire to actually understand things, because that is, I guess, the difference between the instinctive player and the player who could also write a match report at the end of the game. Is you want to understand, you want to unpick it, you want to dismantle it and work out how it all fits together.
very much so, really. I wasn't particularly gifted as a footballer. I mean, I didn't have a brilliant touch. I couldn't dribble past you now.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I might. But, the only way I could ever beat anyone was I was very quick.
Yes.
And I was quick in my mind. So I used to think about the game, and I worked out how to score goals. And the other thing that I was given was a very, very cool head. I very even.
Never got a card.
Never got nervous. Never got angry.
Yeah.
Never tackled anyone. So I was given those things, but I didn't have, any kind of brilliant technique, or I had to work really hard at my touch and stuff like that. But,
and you're conscious
which is probably
of this.
why I was more of a late developer. Because
Right.
my game was more about thought and.
Yes, well, that's what I'm hearing. I'm
skill.
seeing it like building blocks that you were putting together, knowing that what would work and what wouldn't, from watching other players and from working out where you. So you would never have described yourself as an instinctive.
No, not so much. Most of my goals when I was young were balls over the top because I was really quick and just outrunning people and one-on-ones with the goalkeeper, which I quite enjoyed. But not beating three players and curling in the top corner. I never did that in my life.
This might sound like a rude question, but it's linked to what we were talking about with regard to school and the study. Did you read a lot of books when you were young? Did you?
Yeah.
You did. Okay. Then it's not a
I've
rude
always
question.
read
Then
them.
it's not a rude question.
No. Footballer reads books.
No, but you understand what I mean. There are
I
cliches
did.
abounding, but equally, it's hard to see this
I read a
thoughtfulness
lot.
going unchallenged, unchecked. So that puts you on a slightly different metaphorical bus
I
to a
know
lot of your
quite a few
teammates.
footballers, James, that read books.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, quite a few.
But someone like Graham Lasso would take the mother of all kickings for having the audacity to read a national newspaper. You kept
that
your
was the Guardian, though.
It was the Guardian. It was horses for courses.
Help him, yeah.
It is unfair that portrayal of footballers as being
Footballers are a cross section of
course they
working
are.
class society. Some of them are daft. Some of them have drink problems.
Yes.
Some of them are very intelligent. Some of them will read a lot. Some of them won't read at all. They'll have all sorts. They're just a cross section of working class lads that have come up and done quite well. Some of them can handle that. Some of them can't.
Yeah.
That's all we are.
Did you want any of your lads to go into the game, or did you?
They were all keen.
Right.
I used to watch them and support them. The middle two were quite good. Harry, but he never really loved it enough. And Tobias was on. My third was on Chelsea's books on the academy for a couple of years, but he had that Osgood Slatter's knee condition thing.
Yeah.
Both knees were out for 2.5 years, but I think by his own admission, he probably wouldn't have been quite good enough anyway. And you've got to be. You'd have to be really good, and I think to be the son of a well-known player, you've got to be even better.
Of course, because people can come and
It's
take
really
bites
hard.
out of you.
Or
aren't
they
they?
get, you're not as good as. I mean, I remember George, who by his own, he admit it himself, he was not the best player in the world. I remember him, and he always, when he was very tiny, he used to say, "I want to be a footballer. I want to be a footballer." And I used to watch him and think, And then when he was about 11 or 12, one night I was putting him to bed, and he said, "Dad," he said, I don't think I'm going to be good enough to be a footballer, are you, George? I said, "No. Well, it's going to be difficult." So, he admits, but I used to stand on the touchline.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on this one with parents and watching kids play football.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? They're living their lives through the children.
They are. They're desperate, so desperate for them to make it to.
Yes.
It's
probably ends up
awful.
having the opposite effect.
Completely
thought,
opposite effect. They instill fear into the kids. Yeah, this gets stuck in. It's so competitive. It's ridiculous. And I used to get parents come to me and said, "Oh, I thought he might be better, better than he is." And I said, "Well, he's why?" He said, "Well, with you." I said, "Well, his mother was rubbish at
I watched my 9-year-old at Sports Day a couple of years ago when she was 9, and another dad was shouting, "Close her down! Close her down!" 9-year-olds running once around the track.
Play. I just wish we could bring in this thing where parents said nothing.
Yes.
Nothing, apart from applause.
Yeah, it's never going to make much difference.
Apart from applause. Well, it will
pride.
make a lot of difference.
No, I mean,
for the good.
Yes, exactly.
For good.
You're not going to have a negative impact by being quiet.
I spent years, I have 4 boys,
Must have done.
standing on touchline where I never, ever shouted anything ever. Listening to people give the worst possible advice to their own children and other children in the team, shouting complete nonsense 99.9% of the time.
Yes. Yeah, closer. does it? Because clearly you genuinely do rise above all of the flack that's directed at you for sticking your head above the parapet. What about when your personal life gets into the papers? That must be harder to cope with.
Yeah, it's difficult. There are especially, I mean, when they write untruths.
Yes,
and
you're powerless often. I've only recently discovered.
I'll tell you
this.
what's written. Whack the microphone there. But
Sorry.
I'll tell you what's...
You'll get used to this.
What's one of the good things about... Yeah, exactly, eventually. One of the good things about social media, though, it gives you a right of reply.
Yes.
Whereas you never used to have that. I mean, I've seen stories about myself and other people that I know that are completely wrong.
Yes.
Completely made up nonsense.
And it would take 6 months to get any official...
The only vehicle you had available to you was trying to sue, and that was... such a long or arduous process that was dragged out deliberately to put you off ever doing it. And it was dangerously expensive if you didn't win. Dangerously expensive. Whereas at least on Twitter now, you see something that's wrong, that's actually a false story about you. You can go straight away to, especially if you've got a big following,
yes.
which perhaps more than will read the paper in the first place. You can say, this
very true.
is wrong.
Yes. Yes.
And people will then help you, side with you, and it gets out there, and it reaches so many more people than 10 years ago when I wasn't on social media.
There's no right of reply at all 10 years ago.
There wasn't.
As you say.
Couldn't. You had no chance.
Standing on a street corner with a loudhailer would be your only real... You see Ant McPartlin yesterday, a picture of the front page of the Daily Star.
I did.
This is shite. It's exactly what you're talking about.
It's exactly that. Completely fabricated nonsense.
20 times more followers than the Star has readers.
Yeah. And
so there is a change in the power.
There's a change in the power, and that's what they don't like.
No,
and that's why they tend to try and perhaps have a go on your thoughts or your concerns.
Yes.
Especially if we don't agree with them.
Yes. No, I'm fascinated by this. I had my first, because obviously, if you're here, I'm somewhere down there. But I got turned over properly by the Sun last week. Did you see it?
Yeah, it's nonsense.
And it's it was Twitter. It wasn't even the radio show.
But it's hurtful, isn't it? I mean, I don't care who you are.
It's hurtful in a way. Yeah. I mean, there's also that bit like you that goes, all right, then must be doing something right. But of course, you'd rather everybody liked you. You don't want to be the person that's... And I'm trying to unravel that. This what you just said there about they don't like anybody having a view that challenges the thing they're selling.
No, it's fine to have their views, do what they want.
Of course.
But don't go personal attacks just because you don't like what someone thinks. That's what I can't comprehend.
Yeah, no.
So he has a different view to you. So that's what the world's about. We all have different views on all sorts of different things.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean say you've got to be revengeful and try and attack them personally.
And yet that's the modus operandi.
It can be
worse than it's ever been, I think, with Brexit and Trump. It's almost
I think we're in a moment. It's almost a watershed moment. I think it'll either be a watershed moment for good, or we'll continue going down this slippery slope to oblivion.
God knows where that would end.
Yeah,
it's quite chilling. You and Lily Allen probably who's done Unfiltered already. It's like crossing the streams for the editor of the Mail. To have you two on the same.
You're in trouble.
Exactly that.
They're after you. That's all right. Stay strong.
That'll be what it is.
Strong, James.
Have there ever been moments?
How did you find it? I mean, you're so that day all of a sudden you've gone from there.
Also, I'm a former newspaper journalist. I'm a former showbiz journalist, so I wasn't very good at it. But
I mean, I'm very pro newspapers anyway.
Sure,
I just don't understand that
this new breed, this new strain. I was freaked out by it actually. And
they do a lot of great things, but I think sometimes the other side of it lets the real journalists down.
Of course it does.
But they're not brave enough to stand up against it because they can't.
I don't know that I'd use the word brave because
well, you'd have to be really brave to stand up to your own...
And you'd have to not be able to pay your bills next month.
Well, exactly. That's what I mean. You'd have to be really brave.
I see what you mean.
Or mad or whatever.
Yeah.
But so I get how difficult it can be from... I mean, I get direct messages from...
So do I.
I'm sure. From
Mail and Sun
journalists. I would never name them because it wouldn't be fair.
No,
but to say we're absolutely on your side, I'm really sorry, it's difficult.
I had one the other day. Standing at Embankment Station, minding my own business. Bloke comes up and stands next to me and goes, "All right, James." It's like something out of Smiley's People. And I went, "Hello." It happens to be occasionally, not like it does to you. And I just want to say, great work you're doing with regard to the Mail at the moment. I said, why are you whispering? He goes, I'm a senior sub-editor on the newspaper. There's a lot of senior sub-editors, so I'm not giving anything away. Yeah. But they're decent, normal people, and yet there's this...
They're doing a job. I mean, I'm sure they, as disappointed on occasions.
Of course.
And
as baffled, actually. That's the thing I'm getting from you, which is quite reassuring to me. The bafflement is, where does it lead? What's the point? Is it, unless there is just one size fits all, one flavour of ice cream for the whole country. Have you ever had, because if we take October 2016 as the kick-off point with the post-FIFA comments, when you started tweeting about refugees in what you've described very clearly as an utterly unremarkable response to a human tragedy. Yeah. Have you ever thought, I might wind my neck in for a bit now, or I might just take the foot off? I'm not going to hang up my...
I don't want to overdo it.
No.
As well. I think I think it's trying to find... I think if I'm really, really upset about something, or I feel it's worthy of comment, then I'll do it. And I've never deliberately thought, actually, maybe I shouldn't mention anything political at all. I mean, I don't really put out there my political views.
No, you don't. They're humanitarian opinions.
Humanitarian views rather than political. I mean, obviously there are things that you see that the government might do or you feel strongly about, but I've never sided with one party in particular or the other. I've never said who I'd vote for. But it's for me, humanitarian issues are important, and obviously I don't agree with Brexit. I get that a lot of people do.
Sure.
Fine. I just can't yet see anything that will be good about it.
Join the bloody club.
I've seen you enough to know which side you're on that thing.
But again, like you, I'm waiting for the evidence. If someone comes along and says, here you go, mate, here you go.
I really hope it works out okay.
Of course you do, because we live here.
Yeah, because
we've got children.
But I fear that, and it's the children you worry about.
Yes,
you hope it's going to be all right, but we're kind of leaving this block of good.
Yeah.
Genuinely good.
Yeah, not perfect.
Nothing's perfect, and it's the political world. It's definitely very little is perfect at times, but it's kind of worked in its own way for a long time. We've had peace for a long time, whereas
who knows?
Prior to that, we used to have wars with
a couple of decades.
Just
take a chunk out the Germans, have a crack at the French, and vice versa. Well, Spanish. It's all over the place. It's interesting you say that because I don't think political is the right word to describe. No. I prefer humanitarian, and I wouldn't put money on how you do vote, because presumably you can compare. What do they say? A sort of. You presumably don't want a top tax rate of 95% like we had under James Callaghan and Dennis Healy.
No one wants that. Well, but no, there are the things I agree with on both sides occasionally.
Yes.
And there are things I disagree with on both sides. Yeah, I know.
It's outrageous. You need to be more like a football fan, don't you, these days?
Well, that's almost like it is. If you say something negative, say, about the Tory party, which is done occasionally.
Yeah. It means you love Jeremy Corbyn.
It means you love Jeremy Corbyn. And if you criticise Jeremy Corbyn, you
love Margaret Thatcher.
That's pushing it. That is pushing it. But my dad did.
Did he?
Yes. So it's... as soon as you put your head out a little bit, you hit the...
Same family business, you and the Thatchers.
I know.
So that's where your dad probably saw it.
Exactly.
You should have been Prime Minister. You'd been even prouder of you.
Yeah.
It's interesting, actually, because you were in Liverpool in the mid-'80s. Everton.
Only for one season.
I know, but that dressing room must have been one of the most political football dressing rooms.
We had Degsy was.
Hatton was always hanging around. Big mates with Peter Reid, wasn't he?
Yep.
Still is. Neville Southall is giving you a run for your money on social media at the moment.
Different league to me.
Well, he is actually. Neville's pretty close to a cross between Mother Teresa and kind of.
Neville's great.
Was it a political environment at Everton that season, that dressing room, or is this my theory getting slowly shot down in flames by someone that was actually there?
I don't think it was overly discussed.
No, I want to say what BBC
Neville's
drama about
changed a lot.
Has he really?
Yes.
Well, that's good though.
That's fine. Yeah. We all change. I've changed a lot over the years.
Yeah.
You different things. You think about different things as you get older. You perhaps worry a little bit more about things as you get older as well, and you think more deeply about certain areas that we've done, and we've all done that. And but it was a good dressing room.
Yeah, it clearly was.
Yeah, it was the best team I played for, actually. But,
Shut up. How do you mean?
No, it was the best team.
Well, in terms of how everything slotted together.
Yeah, well, there's a really good side. Yeah, I was in an ideal world. I've done a bit longer, but Barcelona came knocking. The club accepted the bid, so
hard to say.
Bye.
And you have no say in that at all.
No, I didn't have to go.
Right.
But when a club comes to you and says we've accepted a bid, you think, oh, well, I'm not really that wanted then. It was like that in those days. It's different now. It's the player has much more power.
Yes, or the agent.
But it wasn't. It wasn't Villarreal or something.
No,
it was
Barcelona,
Barcelona,
yeah.
so it wasn't a terrible.
But was that then? You may have answered this question. Of all the clubs you played for, the first time you ran out onto the pitch in a home game, was Barcelona the one that made you feel?
Well, Barcelona's huge,
So
huge,
utterly magical.
It was 120,000 back then, and you just come out of the tunnel, which the level of the pitch is actually it's a lot lower than the outside. Out the ground, so when you come out, it's like a different tier below. The pitch is below the actual ground level.
Gosh.
And then you go out the tunnel, and they used to have a little chapel on the right hand side, and all the players used to cross themselves. I mean, I don't know, I've always been an atheist, but so I come out onto the pitch, and it was, oh my God, it just goes up, and up and up, and it was really close to the pitch as well. It was just great. 2 minutes in, I scored my first goal. That took the pressure off a little bit.
Doesn't get any better than that, does it? I mean,
just tap in, obviously.
Surely that was the point where you surrendered your lifetime of atheism and went and sat in the chapel.
Maybe I should have crossed. I was the only one who didn't cross himself, though. So there's something in that as well.
It's controversial. You can't help it, can you?
No, I can't help
Picking on the church now. Politics isn't enough.
I've got no problem with anybody who believes anything that they want to believe.
Did you have then political influences, or are you entirely kind of DIY? Because
I'm a bit DIY.
So you pick like a magpie. You just look around.
Well, I'd agree with this thing, that thing, and then there's certain things I don't like, and so I've done. I've never been kind of. I mean, I found it quite difficult to vote for in the last couple of elections, to be honest.
Yeah, next one's going to be even harder,
I know,
isn't it? It's just a lot of homeless politically speaking.
And
a lot of homeless.
I felt like that for some time.
Would it have been brave of you to refuse to do the FIFA draw the other day? Because you've been so outspoken a critic of FIFA, it has improved. It has, and it's changed.
And I'm happy to explain why I did it. I had a lot of contact and a lot of debate with new people, and it was. And over a period of time, they convinced me that they really, really do want to change it. Now, hopefully, they don't let me down. There's more footballers involved. I was speaking to Van Basten, who's involved now, Figo there, and in particular Boban, who's, I don't know what his title is, Secretary General or something, but he's very high up on the ladder. And Boban in particular, he's hugely impressive. He loves football and he's desperate to change things for the good. Now, do you just stay outside when somebody approaches you like that, or do you try and get inside and influence them and change things for the good? Because I care about football.
Clearly.
And that's why I did. That's exactly why I did it. I had meetings out there. I spent hours with the president. I spent hours with Boban, and I remember sitting them in restaurants saying, "This is your opportunity. You can have a real legacy for good in football. You can make changes." It's really not easy. Really not easy for them, because they come in and they can be hoofed out and stuff.
Of course, yes.
But I plead my case with them. And for me to have that opportunity to do, I think was important. I didn't do it for the money. I've gave the whole fee to the British Red Cross. I wasn't interested. It wasn't a money thing.
Sure.
And also it was.
So you were showing your support to the new regime in a way, saying
I was trying to influence the new regime.
Yes.
I'm not supporting them yet until they prove to me.
Okay.
And football that they genuinely will do what they say they will do. Now, and I have a lot of trust, particularly in Boban and the football people that are involved, and hopefully they'll make a difference. But, they deserve a little bit of a push, a little bit of support along the way, because the person I battered was Blatter.
Yes.
And his cronies and that old god. And pretty much all of them now are either suspended, in jail, pending arrest, etc., etc. They're nearly all gone, bar a handful. And yes, there are still issues that need resolving, but some of them need time. And
so, what would have been achieved by you not doing it is pertinent as well, isn't it? Because it wouldn't.
Well, if I could, I could have made a stand and just said, "Well, I was asked, but I didn't." But it was.
How did it get so rotten? I mean, just sort of someone a lot closer to it for most of your life. How did it get so rotten?
I don't know, it made me feel sick, a lot of it. The levels of corruption, and even some of the things that they told me, which I can't say, of how bad the previous regime was and what they're trying to do to change it, and how the expenditure they're massively cutting down. I hope
Mafiosi,
I'm not being naive and don't.
No, I don't think you are.
But what's that whole thing? You can piss outside the tent or something.
You better be inside pissing out than outside pissing
exactly.
in. It's true. And the reaction then, which I hadn't been aware till I just did a little bit of swatting up before I saw you. This, of course, is the same Lineker who has been one of FIFA's most visceral critics. The same Lineker who 3 years ago said FIFA's nauseating corruption made him feel sick. Who advised
which I still say.
Yeah,
and I genuinely meant that. But we have got a new guard in, and hopefully they will be considerably better, and Infantino will prove that. But I'm not. I think it will be difficult for them, but I think they've already made massive changes within,
and the scrutiny has gone up by
the scrutiny's up. They want to make the elections for the next World Cup bids totally open so that everyone can see who's bidding for everyone. So that's a start. Automatically, it takes away the obvious, bribery things a little bit.
Yes, and it does read like something Mario Puzo might have written, doesn't it? Some of the stuff. I mean, you'll know more than the rest of us do, but it's almost as if dream up any example of corruption and then double it, and it happens.
It's beyond belief.
Yes,
it was truly awful. But it needed a new broom. It needed to, just get rid of the old guard and bring someone else in, and let's hope these new people that weren't part of this before, let's hope that they're much better. I sense they are, especially with Boban. But
so watch this space.
And if they don't, and if I feel like they let the game down, I'll be back on the case.
No kidding. Yeah, well, that's a lovely thing, isn't it? That's a lovely thing about what you have become, sort of almost by accident, is that now you do actually have credibility in the sense of people know that you'll be telling the truth next time if you do decide that you need to break ranks. It would be nice to have a bit of
weight in the game that has been so good to me over the.
Did you ever fancy going down that route?
No,
do English players do it very often?
I don't think many players do it, really.
No.
Not many. I mean,
Platini most obviously.
Platini, and he
didn't exactly cover himself in glory, did he?
Down, which
is that how
a real
it feels?
Shame. Yeah,
of course.
I mean, I knew Michel, and he was a wonderful footballer, and he was quite, effervescent guy. You could see I'd done well, but he let himself down. He let the game down. He let footballers down.
No glory in the backroom jobs either, is there? I don't mean glory in a negative sense. I mean it in that magical feeling of.
Yeah, I suppose there's power.
But that's different.
I've never had any kind of feeling having wanted to have any kind of power. So I never. I also don't like playing that let's be nice to everyone political thing that everyone has to do.
And yet you are Mr. Nice. Who was the last person you were horrible to? Serious question.
Oh, I don't know.
Or mean?
Well, I try not to be mean.
Yeah, but you must be sometimes.
Well, I suppose I've put a few away in my own style on Twitter.
Yes, this is true.
And I've had a pop at a few. So I've been mean to people that I perhaps think really, really, really deserve it.
How do you do it? Do you ration it yourself? Because you could. It's easy to get into a vortex, isn't it? Especially when you're seeing so much poison as you are.
I do get a bit of poison on there, but most of the time I ignore it.
Rise above it.
I don't look too much at the notifications.
No.
Occasionally I'll see one or two things. So occasionally I'll have a little bite.
It is a cesspit. And it is in places.
It's worrying. You realise how much hate is out there.
We spoke briefly before we started recording, so I can't remember whether we said this on or off the tape, but there was that sense that social media has become like a football crowd. That sense that it is now.
Yeah. It was before.
It was. Oh, good. Let's do it again. It's open season. The way that you can attack a public figure in particular, or even a non-public figure, it would only at one point have been footballers that ever, and probably black footballers that ever got exposed to that kind of.
Yeah. Well, we all got that hatred as footballers. Certainly, I mean, you still see it now on the terraces. The hatred of the faces and the stuff.
But now it goes right across society.
You never really received that personally until perhaps social media came along, and then all of a sudden, the people with the venom and the anger inside them, they vent, and they can vent
constantly.
it, and they can do it directly to you.
Yes, that's incredible.
So it's kind of weird, especially since I've come out in terms of showing a social conscience, humanitarianism, call it whatever you like. I've had probably more love than I've ever had, but I've also had way more hate than I've even noticed before. And again, I never ever get that in the street. They never have the kind of, I don't know whether it's the bravery or the whatever
Well,
it is to come up to you and give you, I don't like your views or whatever. Never get that.
No, it's to be charitable. It's a bit, you'd like to think they would be too ashamed and embarrassed rather than it necessarily being.
And I think actually most of them, if you actually and they did say what they said on Twitter, you talk them out of it. You go, actually,
often,
come on,
I did this thing.
Come on, I mean, I've heard you do it.
But I've done it with people who've texted in, not intending to speak to me, and I've given them a ring in the commercial break. Said, do you really mean this? You want my wife to get cancer? Should we? Let's just talk this through, mate.
Oh, and you've done that, have you?
Yeah, I'm not encouraged to do it, but
it's probably.
but the numbers there. So and you're right. They do often when you just hold up the mirror. They see what they look like, and they just go, "Oh Christ, sorry, mate, I didn't mean it. Just a bit of fun, just a bit of banter,
that's
bounce,
it.
mate,
I think they
bounce."
just think, "Oh, I'll have a go at me. I'll have a go at me," and they don't really think. I mean, I don't think most people are good.
They have to be.
Most people are good.
They have to be.
But what you get, the ones that want to engage on Twitter, though, they're the few that are angry.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas most people go, "Oh, that's funny," or "That's quite, I agree with him," or "I don't agree with him," or "I don't." But I think 99% of people are like that. But you notice it because it's the 1%.
Yes, of course.
It's
the
loudest. The loudest. It's their chance to have it, and and you also notice the one that's really nasty. You don't notice the really nice things that everyone says.
Actually,
that's just human nature. Again, like you said before, we all want everyone to like us.
Yeah, a little bit of us do. Unless you're a sociopath, in which case you can edit the Daily Mail. It's all sorts of don't care at all what anybody thinks. Do you worry about your children growing up in this kind of environment, or will there be problems in any era?
Most of our life worrying about our children. Different ages, different concerns as they progress, and then they get to adulthood, and how are we going to afford a house, what job they're going to do, all that kind of thing, and what is their future in the I mean, the world's a little bit
in flux,
isn't
it?
It's a bit of a scary
when you left
place.
school, you would have thought if football didn't work out, then whatever job you ended up doing, that you, like your dad, would have done it right up until retirement. Wouldn't you? It would have been. I mean, you would have progressed within a structure, and you'd have done well, but you wouldn't have run the risk of hitting 40 and having to start all over again. It's a very different economic world.
It really is, and all sorts, and and the safety of the world at the moment. And there's so many places around the world that are in turmoil.
When George was poorly, when George had leukemia, from which he made a full and frank recovery, did you come out of that experience changed? Do you think, or am I kind of?
No, I think I always had a sense of perspective and realised. I suppose I've always had a charmed life in many ways. So you started to wonder, but it has to have an effect on you, something like that. I mean, it was an unbelievably traumatic few months. I mean, 2 or 3 times they told us he'd very unlikely make it through the night.
Really,
and living that was like brutal. So it has to have some kind of effect on you for sure. What that was, I mean. People say, "Oh, did it give you more perspective?" Well, I think I always had some degree of perspective, but it's going to enhance that.
In terms of what is important.
What is important in life? Is it important that you score 2 goals at the weekend? Well, of course it is, but it's not as important as whether your son lives or dies. I mean, how anyone couldn't understand that? But I suppose it did in many ways. But it's a little miracle in many ways, George.
You're very close, aren't you, to your boys?
Yeah, I'm close. My boys.
It's lovely.
They're great. They're good fun now.
They enjoy your company.
Yeah.
Were they ever embarrassed to be Gary Lineker's sons?
I think parents always embarrass their children.
But they do. But you're not a normal parent, mate. So I'm kind of a young boy.
Well, let's put it this way. I sat down at breakfast. I've told this story a few times.
Go on, then.
We sat down at breakfast when George was about 10, 11. He's a Manchester United fan. He used to love David Beckham, and I was reading the paper, and there's a big picture of Beckham on it, and he just said, "God, wouldn't it be great to have David Beckham as your dad?" And sums it up. There's always someone better out there.
He's had a unique.
I remember saying, "I said, what do you mean? I play
football." Don't you know?
He said, "Yeah, but he's really good."
They were conscious of you as a player, though, weren't they? I mean, you were still playing when not quite.
I was.
That's quite.
I was 30 when.
That's cruel, isn't it? You wanted to be there for that goal at Barcelona. I don't mean the line is cruel. The line is brilliant, but it would be nice for them to be able to sort of just have a sniff of your heyday from the inside, rather
We're in
than
a restaurant actually, and I was having dinner with George, and David Beckham came in with Victoria like 2 weeks ago.
Fantastic.
George started sweating.
No
he
way,
still
really?
loves him. He
Oh, that's
adores
so
him so
funny.
much.
That's so funny.
And so I told David the story.
Oh, I love it. Love it. Do you, and this is a genuine question actually, and it could go almost anywhere. Do you have any ambitions? And I'm going to add the word left, Gary. Do you have any ambitions left?
I want to be Prime Minister. Not
Well,
ever.
No. I mean, that's...
ambitions left.
Could you see a complete lane change again? Could you see yourself doing something completely different?
I've found a couple of lane changes.
I know.
think,
More than most.
Yeah.
Although always with a footballing flavour.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the one thing I've done in the last 2-3 years is starting my own production company with my friend Tony.
Yeah.
Who'd had a lifetime in TV. I mean, he runs it. And I'm quite involved and do as much as I can and stuff. So that's been quite fun. It'd be nice to build that up and hopefully, be able to employ a few people, etc.
And you have kind of, how long do you think? I mean,
how long do I think? What, alive?
No, not alive. I did Cantona a couple of weeks ago. He told us he was never going to die.
I don't think Cantona will ever die.
No, he honestly sat there. He thought about it for ages. He thought about it for so long. I was going to give him a nudge or tap the microphone.
Well, you thought he'd gone?
Yeah, that would have been a scoop.
What a scoop that would. Imagine.
No, stop.
That's
and he genuinely gave it some serious thought and just clearly couldn't conceive of passing away. But I didn't mean that.
I don't know.
How long was Jimmy Hill on Match of the Day?
Well, he kept going, Jimmy, for quite a while.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to keep. I mean, I love what I do.
But clearly, never bored.
So no,
never
I
bored.
love football. I love watching the big games. I love broadcasting football. So, until I've certainly got no designs on retirement at the moment. I think I get bored.
And no intention of stepping back.
Not yet. I'm sorry, everyone. You're stuck with me for a bit longer.
I'm glad to hear it, Gary. That was real pleasure. Thank you, mate.
Pleasure.
Seriously.
And good to meet you.
Likewise, finally. Yeah.